Kia ora everyone and welcome back to Humankind. In this video I'm going to take you through these nuclear weapons. There are two distinct types of nuclear missiles in Humankind, and the journey to get to them isn't easy. They're buried very late in the game, as you would expect, behind not only technologies, resource requirements, but also some civics. So you're going to need to approach these across the board, but trust me, it'll be worth it. Look at that devastation. Literally, they leave the land in ruins, wiping out any evidence of units or cities within a good number of tiles. They're an incredibly destructive weapon with some of the longest range in the game and the best damage. They're expensive, but they're worth it. Let's jump in and talk about how to get nukes in Humankind, how to use nukes in Humankind, and all of the prerequisites that you'll need to harness the power of these bad boys. Now, there are a few technologies you need to be aware of. The first ones are largely around the resources that you're going to use. Firstly, one of the key late game resources is oil, and here it is right at the end of the industrial era technologies with combustion engine. Flash forward a little bit here into the contemporary era, the last era in Humankind, and you can see that aluminium is here with aerial warfare, but crucially, down the bottom of the tech tree, you can see uranium enrichment. This not only gives you a little scientific bonus, but more importantly, unlocks uranium on the map and allows you to harvest uranium as a resource. Once you get that, to actually get the nuclear weapons themselves and be able to conduct the appropriate testing, you need to come even further down the tree and have a look at a few key technologies here. I'll point them out quickly. Obviously, you have nuclear fission. Nuclear fission really boosts your uranium deposits, which is super nice. It unlocks a couple of side technologies like the nuclear plant and the submarine. It also gives you nuclear doctrine. This is important because it unlocks access to the nuclear weapons civics, and without these, you can't make nukes. Now, this is the one you need in particular, nuclear weapons. It's the last civic down the army arm of the tree, which is the second arm. You need to choose the nuclear proliferation, the homeland branch, that will unlock, as you can see, the Nuclear Fission Test national project, and it's unlocked by researching that nuclear fission technology. So a bit of overlap here. Really then, the nuclear fission technology is paramount. You get the civic and you get the tech. Computing will be a nice boost to your science, but really the only other key technology you need here is this. You need the missile silo in particular, which is unlocked through rocket science. You'll use this missile silo, of course, to launch your nuclear missiles from. It's a district that you build in the game on the map, in the same way that the nuclear tests are built on the map. We'll discuss them more in a minute, but that in a nutshell is what you need from the tech and civics tree. Now that you've got those needs out of the way, let's talk how do we actually get these missiles. So of course the missiles themselves are units just like any others, and so they have prerequisite requirements on resources that you need and either gold or population if you choose to buy them outright. But before you can even build them, we have to discuss the projects that are required to test them. There are, in fact, 3 projects required to get access to both of the main nuclear missiles. That's the Nuke, and then the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, the ICBM for short. Now, the 3 test projects work exactly the same way that placing a Wonder does, for example. You place down this thing on the map, and then you have to complete it, and you can assign multiple cities to produce it, so the high production cost can be mitigated by that. Now, let's talk what they actually are. First and foremost, you need to do the fission test. 2,500 production to put it down, place it down on the map. It will consume an area of 7 tiles, can't be placed over resources, can't be placed over ocean or coastal tiles, and it needs to have empty land basically to do the test on. It can only be built once in your empire. Once you've built that and conducted that test and successfully turned that area into a wasteland, because mind you, it will destroy those tiles, okay? These tests aren't just gimmicky projects, they actually happen on the map. You can see where I've tested has destroyed the landscape. So do bear that in mind. You might want to go and test somewhere in the Pacific. Next up comes the fusion test. Again, 2,500 production, but this time a slightly higher cost. Instead of just costing 1 uranium, it'll cost you 2 uranium and 1 aluminium. So you can build this in the exact same way. This time though, it takes up 19 tiles on the map. This is a big testing site, and you need some land to find for it. I struggled to find mine, but eventually I did. And once you do that, you can then get to the ICBM test. This is the third test. It requires 3 uranium, 2 aluminium, and 1 oil, so all 3 of those crucial resources. Unlike normal districts, this one will take up 7 tiles, and the 6 surrounding the central district must be free again, and of course it will lead to absolute devastation. Once you've completed those tests, you can get on with this. The beauty of the nuclear strike in Humankind. You can launch your nuclear missiles with a range of 14 and 80 damage, or the thermonuclear missiles. If you completed all 3 tests, the thermonukes have a range of 14 but a whopping 100 strength. These are bad boy missiles. And of course you'll launch them out of your missile silo districts as well, so do make sure you have some of those placed around the map so you can actually get a feel for it. Just quickly though, before we move on, take a look at this footage. This is actual footage of me trying to figure out a spot to place this ICBM test, and look how absolutely massive it is. I should correct myself, it has that full range, that full 19 tile. Look at it, it's huge. Eventually I found a spot to put it down. You can see that some of the geography and the unimproved resources didn't matter, but it did need to be blank land, and that enabled me to launch this. Something else that you should know, despite there being 3 tests, the fission, the fusion, and then the ICBM, you can actually launch these missiles from the second test, the fusion test. Once you complete the first test, you get the normal nuclear missile. At the second test, you unlock the ICBM test project, and you can construct the thermonuke itself. But actually doing the ICBM test project only unlocks basically a buff to your future missiles. Future missile units will have an additional veterancy level, so they'll be promoted up 1. So it's powerful, and it will add additional bonuses to your ICBMs, but just bear in mind, you actually only need, technically, to do the first 2 test projects to unlock the 2 nuclear missiles that are currently available in Humankind. At the end of this video, I just want to bring a few really important things to your attention. I've touched on a few of them already throughout, but it pays to provide them here at the end, I think, as well. Firstly, your test projects will destroy the land where you conduct them. They will annihilate everything, bear that in mind. Secondly, when you launch the nuclear missiles, they will have the same effect. You can target administrative centers, cities, and outposts with them by and large. Those, of course, tend to also be the most valuable targets to hit, so it makes sense. Fire them upon the area and it will absolutely obliterate everything in sight, as well as generate a whole load of grievances against you. So be prepared to be the political bad guy when it comes to launching nukes in Humankind. More frequently asked questions. Firstly, the nuclear weapons do have what's called the nuclear device unit attribute assigned to them, so they detonate 1 turn after being launched. So you fire the missile, you see it launch off, then you have to wait a turn before its effect actually takes place. That's part of Humankind's mutually assured destruction, i.e. if you're using nukes against another nuclear power, they will have time to retaliate against you. Not just nuclear powers, of course, normal other AIs or opponents could fight back against you as well during that time period, but if they have nukes, they'll be able to launch them before yours hit off. So we don't get that Civilization 6 or Civilization 5, I should say, thing going, where a nuke kills a nuke and you can't use it because you got nuked first. In this game, there is a 1-turn delay, pays to bear in mind. And last but not least, if, let's say the ICBM missile, it requires 3 uranium, it does not use up those 3 uranium resources. In Humankind, strategic resources aren't used up like that. So long as you have 3 uranium connected, whether you have them within your borders or if you've traded for them, however you've got them, so long as you have 3 total connected, you'll be totally fine forever. Literally for the rest of the game, all you need is 3 and you're good to go. Something to bear in mind for your wonderful nukes in Humankind. Hey, that concludes this video on my Humankind nuclear missile tutorial. Hopefully now you have all the information you need to get out there and get nuking. Essentially, it all fundamentally relies on those contemporary era technologies, that crucial one that not only unlocks the ability to harvest uranium, but then also the civic that is required to get nukes. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and until next time, I'll see you then.